Amateur diagnosis and successful repair of an intermittent stalling problem with my 96 Lexus ES300, but the make and model and year of car don't matter as much as the engine, which is a 1MZ FE engine, a Toyota engine, 6-cylinder. So if you have a 1MZ FE engine and you have an intermittent stalling problem or even a no start problem, keep watching. You'll see all the components that are involved in supplying power to your fuel pump. 96 Lexus ES300. Got an intermittent stalling issue. It cut off on me twice yesterday. Once when I was at idle, and then again when I was going about 40 miles an hour. I got it back home. It's the next morning. The engine's cold. I'm just going to let it sit here in idle and see if that intermittent stalling returns, and then we'll go from there. That took about 4 minutes. Let's see if it'll restart. Does run for a couple of seconds. But then it shuts off. And you can see while it's running just for a couple of seconds, the check engine light is lit. So before we do anything else, let's put the code reader on it, see if I have a trouble code. To check for codes, the ignition needs to be on. You get the scanner plugged in. Need to diagnose. And for some reason, this is taking much longer than it normally does. It's been over a minute. Ah, there's why. Communication error. Communication error could indicate a problem with my computer. Problem with my computer could cause intermittent stalling. It could cause the fuel pump to shut off, which is what I suspect is going on based on what I read last night. This is a Toyota official repair manual. There's a section right here on 1MZ FE engine, 6-cylinder. That's the engine my ES300 has. To check fuel pump operation, if it's not operating properly, these are the things you should check. Fusible link, these two fuses, EFI main relay, fuel pump, ECM, and wiring connections, but no mention of the circuit opening relay. But in this wiring diagram for a 1MZ FE engine, you can clearly see a circuit opening relay that supplies power to the fuel pump. And in this repair forum thread, there are two relays that control the fuel pump, the EFI relay and circuit opening relay. This says that the circuit opening relay is in the engine compartment fuse box, right there, R2. In mine, it is not. It's not there. I think mine is behind the glove box. So to get started on checking all of this, first thing I need to do is get the glove box out and try to find the computer and the circuit opening relay. To get that out, I'm gonna have to open up the passenger door, which I can't do right now because it's too close to the wall on the other side, to turn the car around and back it into my garage. Today it idled for 11.5 minutes before cutting off. So let's see if it'll start back up. Little fluctuation in the RPMs, but it didn't cut off. And there it went. Let's try the code reader one more time and see if we get that communication error again. And I'm not sure if you noticed, but when the engine was running, the check engine light was on, then there was that fluctuation in RPMs and the check engine light went off. So I don't know what, if anything, that means. Now we have no communication error. We are connected to the ECM, or ECU is what it calls, an engine control unit. DTC is diagnostic trouble code 0. Read the codes, yes, but there aren't going to be any. The vehicle has no fault codes. I'm connected to the computer this time. Last time I got a communication error. That makes me suspicious of the computer being the problem. Moving on, if you remember, I turned the car around to give me better access to the passenger side so I could take the glove box out and hopefully find the computer and the circuit opening relay, and there they are. How I got those out is going to be a separate video. Proceeding with this video, I'm now going to test that relay. And in that same manual that I mentioned earlier on pages 280 and 281, there are instructions for how to inspect and test the circuit opening relays. Testing the circuit opening relay, my multimeter is set to 200 ohms. Following the layout of the pins, I have the relay in the same orientation. So I want to test for continuity between ST and E1. And continuity, as I understand it, it's a path between these two pins. So all we want to see is some numbers pop up on the multimeter, and we have 26.3. Now continuity between plus B and FC, same thing, we just want to see numbers, and we have them. No continuity, plus B, FP. We don't want a path between these two. We want no change on the multimeter. And that's what we got. We are going to apply voltage, which is coming straight from the battery, to ST and E1. I have the black lead clipped onto ST and also the negative battery terminal. The red lead is clipped onto E1. And now when I touch the other end of the red lead to the positive battery terminal, we should hear a click. That's the sound of the armature within the relay closing, completing the circuit. Now I'm going to clip that lead on the battery to keep power going to it. And now we're going to check again for continuity between plus B and FP, which we already did up here, but there was no continuity. There was no connection. So I'm guessing adding power is going to create a connection between the two now that the armature has closed. And that is what happened. So this relay passes all these tests. Now let's test the EFI relay. Here's the EFI relay, or electronic fuel injection relay. Here are the instructions that I took from a video that I watched that I'll put a link to down below in the description. It'll show you how to test 3, 4, and 5 pin relays. What's the difference between continuity and resistance? I don't know the answer, I'm just asking the question. The multimeter is going to remain on 200 ohms. I'm going to test for resistance between pins 1 and 2. An acceptable range is anywhere between 50 and 120 ohms. And I have 76.2, so it passes that. Now we want to supply 12 volts to 1 and 2 and listen for a click. So it passes that test. Now I want to put power back on 1 and 2, so I'm going to clip this on and leave it there. I need to change the multimeter from 200 ohms to 20,000 ohms, which is 20K. Now we're going to measure resistance between 3 and 5, which is top and bottom. And what we want to see on the meter is 0.00 or 0.01. And we have 0.00, so it passes that test. Now the last test is to leave power on 1 and 2, but also supply power to pin 3, which is on the bottom. I'm going to clip another lead onto the positive battery terminal, and then clip that on pin number 3. And now touch the test light on pin number 5, and it should light up. Which it does. So, the EFI relay passes all these tests. Both relays tested as being good, which doesn't mean they're not the problem. They could be failing intermittently, but for now they're good. Now I'm going to test the 2 fuses mentioned in that repair guide. AM2 fuse, 30 amp. This one's in the engine compartment. It's right there in the fuse box right next to the battery. And it looks fine. It is not blown. And to be sure, we'll put the test light on it. And that fuse is good. And you can see in this other fuse box that I do not have a dedicated fuel pump relay. If I did, it would be right there. IGN, 7.5 amp. This is in the fuse box in the interior, bottom left of steering wheel. Middle row, third from the left, 7.5 amp. It's also in good shape. It is not blown. And I had to cut the ignition on to get this fuse hot. And it's good also. Let's finally check out the fuel pump, which is underneath the back seat. And I've never had this back seat out, but from what I've read, I should just be able to get my hand underneath and pull straight up. That is all you have to do. There are just some clips on the bottom that snap in. And now this rubber grommet should pull out of there. We want to get to the wiring harness if we can, but I'm not sure. Nope, I'm going to have to take this cover off. There's a release tab right there. I need to press in on that. The configuration on this one is different than the repair manual. The repair manual had the 5 pins straight across, and 4 and 5 were the 2 on the right. Those are the 2, 4 and 5 that I need to test the resistance between. I'm going to have to do a little research to figure out which ones are 4 and 5. Pin 4, which is blue and black, is power. Pin 5, white and black, is ground. Just for future reference, I marked it on the top of the wiring harness. 4 is power, 5 is ground. To test for resistance between pins 4 and 5, I have my multimeter set to 200 ohms. And it doesn't matter which test lead goes on which pin. And we're looking for a reading between 0.2 and 3.0 ohms. And we have 2.3. So the fuel pump passes the resistance test, but it doesn't mean it's not cutting out intermittently. So here's where I'm at. I tested the resistance on the fuel pump, it passed. I tested the relays, they passed. I checked the fuses, they were good. The ECM, there's really no way for me at my level to test it. What I'm doing now is addressing the last thing on that list of things to do in the repair manual, which was to check wiring connections. So what I just sprayed on those pins is anti-corrosive lubricant spray. And I'm going to spray this on the pins on the relays. I'm going to spray this on the wiring connections on the ECM. The fuses I'm going to leave alone.
Now this last connection, this largest one, when I took it out, it was very difficult to get out. This last one on the bottom doesn't want to come out. Maybe that's a clue. Maybe there's some corrosion. I didn't see any, but there's always a possibility. Now let me do the relays.
Well, the last 2 days, each day I cranked it up and it ran for an hour each day. It idled and did not cut off at all. No check engine lights. Everything seems like it's fine. Tachometer still not working. I'll fix that one day. So before I end the video and call it fixed, even though I don't know specifically what I did to fix it, I'm gonna take it out there and put some miles on it. 3 days and 20 miles later, and no issues. No stalling whatsoever. Everything's working fine. So I don't know specifically what I did to fix it. The only thing I can figure is that one of the wiring harnesses or one of the relays, maybe they were a little bit loose, maybe they had some corrosion, and taking them apart, putting them back together, putting that anti-corrosive spray on it, something fixed it, because I did not replace any parts. Now I was prepared to replace some parts because I did go to the salvage yard. I found a 95 ES300, but as you've seen, I did not need to do that. So the only thing I can give credit to is this spray. This may have helped to solve the problem. All I know is the car's been running fine for 3 days and over 20 miles. At least you may have learned something from this video, all the things that contribute to supplying power to your fuel pump. And up here in the top left corner, that's a video that'll show you how to take the glove box apart, get to the computer, and get to the circuit opening relay, if that's where yours is. It might be in the engine compartment also, so look there first. That's the easier place to find it. And last thing, look down below in the description for 2 links, one to the video that showed me how to test relays and another to that 1MZFE repair manual. Hope this helps. Thanks for watching.